Hello and welcome back to a very special video episode of Highway Hooligans. I'm your host, Quinn Walter. You can find me on Instagram at QuinnMaster. I am very excited for this episode because we have a very special video feature for you guys. We have an interview. I sat down and virtually, of course, spoke with a writer, producer, and host from Donut Media on YouTube. It's a very special interview. You're not gonna want to miss this. Stick around to find out who it is. We'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to Highway Hooligans. I'm your host, Quinn Walter, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very excited because we have a special guest who I'm very excited to speak with. He is a writer, creative producer, and host at Donut Media on YouTube. Please welcome Nolan Sykes. Nolan, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me here, Quinn. Happy to talk.
Awesome. Well, we have just a few questions for you. First and foremost, we like to ask everybody what kind of car do you drive? And I know that you have two cars. You have a Mustang, and then you have something a little bit more special. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, sure. My daily driver, I've got just a 2006 Mustang GT. I've upgraded it with some BC coilovers and it's got some Nitto tires on there right now. I've modified it for two purposes. One is for I do autocross with it. I've been out to the autocross many times with the car, and it's not typically a car that you see out there, but with those modifications and just kind of playing with the suspension and tire pressure, it can be a lot of fun. It's faster than a few of some other cars you might see out there that you would think would be much better autocross cars. But also just like aesthetically, I think it looks really awesome now. It's got some NK wheels on it, and I spent a lot of time choosing the right tire widths and tires with the right dimensions so it fills out the wheel wells in the way that I like. So it's my only daily driver, so I figured if I'm going to have a Mustang, because like Mustangs are kind of like a meme car, people kind of like to make fun of them. So I figured, hey, if I'm going to drive this car, it might as well be one that I really like to look at. So I'm really happy with it right now. I've kind of stopped upgrading that because I have I have a 1952 Chrysler Imperial that I've been working on. I bought that last year as like a quarantine project. And to be honest, I totally kind of lost momentum and steam on it just because I was overwhelmed with how many things I had to do to it. Kind of pretty inexperienced in that regard, kind of a rookie move. But last weekend I went through with my co-host on Donut, Zach Job. We went through the whole engine bay together, and just he was a huge help in figuring out and pointing out things that I needed to do, like new parts I needed to buy and systems that I needed to look up and figure out how they work so we can finally get this thing rolling. I do want to have it done by the end of the year. I can't go another year without having this thing running. That'd be just bad.
Yeah, it's sort of like the longer you go, the harder it can get.
It really is. And it was kind of a weird coincidence. After I did that, the next day, one of my friends from high school I hadn't talked to in years hit me up on Instagram. He's like, hey, I've got this Lincoln Continental, a 66 Lincoln Continental, which I thought was super cool. But he was like, hey, like, do you have any tips on how to get my project going? And I think it's just really comes down to having someone, if you're inexperienced in that way, it really comes down to having someone that is very knowledgeable that can help you get you going in the right direction. So luckily I have that in Zach Job. So
yeah, so shout out to Mr. Job.
Yes.
So I know based on that, I know you've mentioned you're a big Mopar fan. We're big Mopar fans here on Highway Hooligans. I personally love a lot of the new school stuff that Dodge is doing, just really going for it. I also wanted to ask about you. You have experience working on motorsport teams, right? Because you've done the autocross with the Mustang, but you've also worked on the crew. And would you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so sure, I do have a fair bit of motorsport experience, especially when it comes to drag racing. When I was a kid, I participated in junior drag racing with my dad. So those are like small dragsters. They're about 14 feet long. They're powered by a single cylinder Briggs and Stratton based engine. They can produce, I think, up to like 20 horsepower depending on the size of the motor. They run on methanol. So yeah, as a kid, very fortunate to be able to do that. And then as I was in community college, my dad was crewing on a nostalgia funny car team. So he asked if I'd like to try it out, and I did, and I ended up working what's called the bottom end. So the bottom end of the motor. So after the funny car does its run, we got to bring it back to the pits, and you gotta with these nitromethane cars, you need to pretty much tear the engine completely apart between runs just to make sure everything is good. I mean, a lot of times you will break something just because of the highly volatile and explosive nature of nitromethane. It puts so much stress on these engines. But we were kind of a lower budget team, definitely the lowest budget team in our class, so we had to reuse a lot of components. But anyway, my role would be to get underneath the car. They'd lift it we'd have air jacks and lift the car into the air. I'd get under the car, drain the oil, take the oil pan off. There's also there's body panels under there and what's called the diaper. It's like a Kevlar bag, basically, that if the motor does explode, it doesn't just blow oil all over the track. Like, you got to have that on there. So take that off, take the oil pan off. All that, meanwhile, just hot oil is dripping in your face. It's an extremely dirty job. And then, the clutch guy also, he's taking apart the clutch and maybe blowing it out with an air gun. Clutch dust is getting everywhere. Probably not good for your lungs. But it was a lot of fun. Was with that team, Smokey's Dark Side, for I think 3 to 5 years, I believe. So like when I transferred down to CSU Northridge, that's when I would try to make as many races as I can, because we mostly raced at Famoso Raceway over in Bakersfield, so not too far from LA. Haven't really gone with them for a while, but actually tomorrow I'm heading out to Bakersfield again to Button Willow Raceway to spot. I'm gonna be spotting for an endurance racing team, Team Technic. They've built a Porsche Boxster endurance car, so we'll be doing a 3-hour race in the NASA series tomorrow night. So I'm excited for that. Yeah, I tried. Driving itself is pretty hard to get yourself into position for. But if you want to be in motorsports, there's plenty of crew positions that, teams are always looking. So, it's kind of hard if you don't know anybody in the racing scene, but there's surely teams out there always looking for people to help, because it's not just the driver, there's so many positions.
There's a lot of people to it. Yeah. I always admired, especially like when you watch F1. I know you're an F1 fan. The pit crews are part of the sport.
Yeah,
and that's super cool.
It's a team sport. Yeah, I would say, like, of course, like autocross and maybe in like lower level drag racing where you're not rebuilding the car or anything. Like, those are like two sports where you can really get away with just being by yourself and just knowing your car. And like time attack is the same way. But once you get to like door-to-door racing at a little bit of a higher level, like that's when you need like a team of people. You can't just go by yourself. It's pretty demanding. Yeah, and you wouldn't want to do it by yourself either.
Yeah, it's more fun. We actually spoke with someone recently who does a lot of track driving, and he emphasized how much community there is when you have that sort of camaraderie. That's very, very cool. Nolan, I wanted to ask you one more question about something you've done recently. I see you have Dirt 5 on Instagram.
Yeah.
And could you tell me a little bit about what went on between Donut and Dirt 5?
Yeah, so that was a pretty surreal experience. Early last year, in the week before COVID, the COVID quarantine, James Pumphrey, my mentor and fellow host on Donut, James and I, we did voiceover for Dirt 5, which was in the works for a little while, and it really came down to the wire. It was pretty close, but we made it happen. Just a surreal experience, being able to take part in a franchise like that I've been a fan of for like over 10 years now, you know, like playing since like Dirt 2. It was surreal is the word I keep using over and over, but yeah, man, like the recording studio was in Burbank, so super close. We just drove out there. We got to work with Nolan North and Troy Baker, like two of the most like prolific like video game voiceover artists. I'm a big fan of those two guys. Like, you know, like both of them were in not huge Naughty Dog games like Uncharted and The Last of Us, which are two of my favorite series. It was just unbelievable. Yeah, so we, you know, the recording process I think took 3 or 4 days, I want to say. And one of the weirdest parts of it was, you know, you can select your name in Dirt 5, like a nickname. So they gave me, the Codemasters producers gave me like a list of like 300 names, and I had to say each of them with a different emphasis. Probably like 3 times I would have to say each name like 3 times. So I just spent like an hour saying names, an hour plus just saying names in different ways. And just seeing Troy Baker and Nolan North like really get into character like so effortlessly. You're like, okay, I get why these guys are just the guys in every game. Like they were just so talented. That was just a really cool experience. And got to work with Jamie Chadwick. She called in to do her voiceover. She's in the W series, the women's open wheel racing series, and then another YouTuber named the Slap Train is also in the game. It was just super cool.
That's super cool because I like in doing research for this. I saw the Dirt 5 and I had to dig into it a little bit, and I think that's cool because I think what maybe you don't think about is, or maybe you have, is that cements you. Your voice is going to be cemented in a video game for a long time.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
It's, you know, so many times I don't know, in the small amount of fame that I have, you know, even that can go to your head. So you gotta like just keep in mind, or, you know, just try to be humble and all that. But also it's a cool thing to be like, yeah, like not a lot of people are in a video game at the same time. It's just a cool thing that you can say, you know. And it was a lot of fun, and the game itself is really fun too. So I'm happy with that.
Well, congratulations on that, because that's, I think, really cool. Well, that's about all the time that we have. We've gone a little bit over. So I just want to say, Nolan, thank you again for coming on the show. This has been really cool, really insightful to some of your past. So as we watch you on Wheelhouse at you know, on Donut Media on YouTube every Tuesdays?
Every Monday. Yeah.
Monday.
Wheelhouse.
Monday.
Yeah. Every
right.
Monday.
See, the way I watch is I wait a few weeks because I get busy doing school and just binge them on. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
got to do my donut catch up and binge on usually like a Saturday morning or something.
Absolutely.
But I want to say thank you very much, and we'll be right back after this. Wow, that was honestly one of the coolest things I've done in a long time. I got to sit down with Nolan from Donut Media. I want to give a big thank you to Mr. Nolan Sykes for giving us a few moments of your time here on Highway Hooligans. Really appreciated getting to know a little bit about your motorsport background, as well as learning how you're going to be in a frickin' video game. How cool is that? All right, hooligans, it's time for the end of the show. I want to thank you guys for listening to Highway Hooligans, the podcast for today's car lover. I've been your host, Quinn Walter. You can find me on Instagram at QuinnMaster. Remember, drive safely out there. Good night, y'all.